that could, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, on that one, what I think is what I know and what I tell my buyers, and I know Christin does this as well, tell every buyer in every house someone might be listening to you.
Okay.
Because, technically they're supposed to post that there's cameras and audio going on. But there's a question of, well, it's the seller's house, so are they obligated to that law? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
But I do know some people listen. And even if it's not obvious that there's cameras. So it's almost a bad idea to have these conversations with yourselves and with your realtors while looking at a house, because I know of situations where I've found out that sellers were listening.
Yeah, same. I've sponsored open houses where the sellers were literally watching us the entire time, listening to what we were talking about, and made a call and asked, well, what about this? And it's like the only way they could have known that is if they were, which we weren't saying anything wrong, but it just made me realize that if I'm a buyer and I'm walking into a house and I see cameras all over everywhere, I'm going to be hesitant to maybe, I don't know, it's just a psychological thing.
It creates a seed of distrust.
Yeah,
it does.
A little bit,
which is not really the best way to start a transaction.
Yeah.
I
think it should be disclosed.
You mentioned my guy. He did our inspection when I bought my home the last time. And when he finished up with his inspection, it's time to talk to the buyers, which was us. He's like, all right, we are going to step outside because I found a camera in the house.
Yeah.
He's like, we're not talking about this in here.
Right. Yeah. Because the last thing you want is that kind of such a situation. Like you said, you want your buyers to feel at home in there. They want to envision themselves living there. And if they feel like Big Brother is watching, they're on edge. They can't talk about what they're seeing. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't know the
should
way
be
around
disclosed.
that.
It just should be disclosed.
It really should be.
Everything is recorded in this house for security purposes. At least that way you're not like finding out later or during your showing that, oh crap, somebody's listening.
Yeah.
Just kind of being upfront and getting ahead of it.
Something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing that's on the list that I think is really cool too, smart appliances. So like the smart refrigerator, all that stuff, really neat.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't go out and buy them special for sales purposes. But if you have them and they are leaving them behind, definitely a plus. Buyers, we know they absolutely love it. Unless they're from some of those name brands that people are like sick of now. I'm not going to say which those are.
No, we all know though.
We'll be back.
Unlocking Lake County with Dick Barr will return in just a few moments after these important messages. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Unlocking Lake County with your host, Dick Barr.
Welcome back. This is Dick Barr, your host of Unlocking Lake County, here with Christin Kaufman.
Hi, friends. Welcome back.
And Sly Marinca, the Sly Marinca team at Cross Country Mortgage.
Hello, everybody.
And we didn't get to finish up our tips for increasing market value of your home before you list, but we're going to finish that up. And then after that, we're going to hit on rock solid insider tip buying strategies on ways you can improve the effectiveness and acceptability of your offers if you're buying in this market, in this very competitive seller's market landscape. So, Christin, if we can pick up where we left off and start with the next one on our list.
Yeah, so the next thing on our list is going to be focusing on energy efficiency improvements, things like adding energy efficient windows and doors, insulation and HVAC updates.
And I would probably emphasize windows sometimes are a big plus on getting. So new windows, especially new insulated windows, attractive ones, don't cheap out on the windows. But on the flip side, depending on the neighborhood you're in, windows don't necessarily make a huge difference in value. So on the higher end listings, yes, new windows are paramount. But on the kind of the more entry level to mid level, windows don't have that much of a huge effect. A lot of those buyers aren't really thinking about their energy costs associated with the home ownership.
Yeah, and definitely adding solar panels will add value to your home. For anyone who doesn't understand why we're laughing, we had a whole segment about that a couple weeks ago about how it definitely does not add value to your home and could be trouble, but if you love them, get them.
On the leased ones, yeah. But the owned ones, I think the jury's still out.
Yeah. Moving on. So we've got professional photography and virtual tours. Dick, I want to let you talk about that a little bit because that is really where you shine.
Well, thanks. So, if you're just looking to sell your house, let's say you're doing by owner, be careful not to do like cell phone shots. The goal of in any marketing campaign is to make it just like if you go to McDonald's, you go to Burger King, what do you see? You see the best looking cheeseburger you've ever seen in your life with perfect lettuce, with a perfect pickle and exact amount of sesame seeds on your sesame seed bun.
Never looks that way once you get it.
No, it doesn't. So the goal of photography is to attract people. So you should not be altering the photography to make it look better than it is. But you can maximize how it looks in real life using professional photography and editing resources. When you are choosing a broker to represent you, make sure they use professional photography. They're making a lot of money on the transaction. Mm-hmm. Make sure they use professional photography because that's one of the biggest things that will determine how much money you make on a sale. Too many times I've seen people using cell phones in portrait mode to take photos, and I'm going to give a precise example. We had recently sold a home. This was actually going back 2 years in a particular neighborhood. We just got $450,000 for it. It was a Tremont model, and then 2 weeks after we closed, someone else listed a Tremont model. It was a fine home. It wasn't as nice as ours. But they did very poor cell phone photography, and they didn't ask the sellers to clean up at all. So there was junk and there was clutter everywhere. And they took these photos, and they wound up lowering the price to $345,000 before they found a buyer.
Oh my gosh.
They did. Some of the neighbors had complained, and then the seller did demand that their agent retake the photos, and they did come out with better photos, but it sold so much less because it had sat on the market forever with price reduction after price reduction. So I can't stress enough the importance of professional photography. And virtual tours are starting to become bigger players in the market, especially in our community where we have a lot of our buyers coming from the naval base, and they don't get here. So they're buying this sight unseen almost. Right. So if you have virtual tours, you're increasing the amount of viewers and potential buyers for your house by having that ability to access it remotely.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on. So on our list here, and I know you kind of want me to keep it shorter here, Dick. So I'm gonna tell you what's on the bullet point. You can tell me if you want me to keep going or not.
Sure.
So the next thing on the list is timing of the market. Do you want me to talk about that a little bit, or should we just keep going?
Yeah, well, I think we pricing strategies and timing of the market, right? Those are two big important factors, and you can touch on those briefly. We have if we want to get to the buyer strategies, we're pretty much out of time. So let's just kind of leave it at pricing strategies.
We'll make this list available on our website.
There you go. Timing of the market, and then of course the marketing of your home, which is the number one way to get buyers in.
Absolutely. But on the subject of buying, there is another subject that we wanted to talk about a little bit, and that is the winning buyer contract strategies to secure an accepted offer. I'm sure that Sly can vouch for how hard it is to get your offer accepted these days.
Brutal right now. Cash is king. I know I see that right here, number one. Lots of cash sitting on the sidelines. Lots of people not wanting to pay the 7% rates we're seeing. They would rather just, pull their money out of their investments or their savings or whatever and, dump it into real estate. So we're seeing a lot of that, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So what he's touching on, we have a little list here of the lending terms hierarchy, right? So I'm jumping ahead of our list a little bit, but I want to stay on subject with that. So correct. Cash is king, right? So having a cash offer is definitely going to be a great way to get your offer accepted. Now, beyond that, the next best thing is a conventional loan. And then you need...
So let's, terminology-wise, so when we say best, So
most likely to be
right, because some of these lending programs are fantastic, great lending options available. But what enticed the sellers more? So I just want to be overly specific on that, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's important. Absolutely.
Yeah, because when we get to the question about VA loans, people can say, well, what do you have against VA? And we have nothing against VA loans, and we'll get into that in deep. But there is a hierarchy of when you're offering terms. And then, Kristen, I'll let you take it from here. There's a hierarchy of what sellers look at because each of these products have different pros and cons.
Yeah, for sure. So we're talking about most to, I don't want to say least likely to get accepted, but easiest to get accepted to harder to get accepted.
Right.
So then beneath the conventional is, like Dick just said, the FHA and the VA loans, which really bums me out because it shouldn't be that way, but it is.
So can I share just a little bit about
please.
that?
Absolutely.
A lot of it has to do with appraisals.
Yes.
In this market, let's face it, if there's 3 different offers that come in, and one is cash, which means they don't need an appraisal or they aren't going to have an appraisal done. Another is a conventional loan with, let's say, 20% down, where an appraisal will have to be done because we're not at the appraisal waiver standpoint. And then an FHA or VA offer with very little down. Your seller most of the time is going to take the easiest way to get the most guaranteed bang for their buck, the most for their, and on an FHA or VA loan, it is a common misconception that, the appraisers are going to make you fix every little thing in the house. That's not the case anymore. A long time ago, yes, they cared about little, even cosmetic things. That's not the case anymore. It's safety, security. The biggest one we see is peeling paint or broken windows or whatever. But if a seller doesn't have to mess with that and they don't have to worry about an appraiser coming out and saying the value is only $300 when they're selling it for $350, seller's going to accept that cash offer more than likely.
Because if you think about it, there's multiple levels of inspections in that case. So you have the home inspector being paid to come and say that everything's wrong. And then once you agree to those negotiation terms, then the appraisal inspector comes in and does a low-level inspection and comes up with another list that the seller might be on the hook for.
That's it.
And tripping hazards is the other big thing that we see on those. Anything that's got more than
hand
a 2-inch
railings,
gap, hand railings.
That kind of silly stuff. But
grabbable hand railings. Silly.
So jumping to the beginning of our list real quick. So when we're talking about strategies for getting an offer accepted, price is going to be an important factor, right? So if you're working with a realtor, you want to discuss what the appropriate price will be to offer. Depending on when it is in the market, that's going to change a little bit, right? If you know that it's super competitive out there and you're trying to go beneath the asking price, you're probably going to have a tough time getting your offer accepted. Maybe.
Yeah. And then moving on to closing date.
So absolutely. I've
Flexibility.
texted selling agents and asked, is a closing date a priority for your clients so that I can find out, so that I can get my clients a better option to be able to get.
I'm so happy you guys just didn't say the fastest closing date, because I literally just had a client win a bid because he was able to push the closing date out so that the seller can find somewhere else to move.
Yeah, 100%.
The other offer was like, nope, I'm out. I already sold my house. I need somewhere to be in 30 days.
Absolutely.
And they wouldn't rent it back. So
having the quickest date isn't necessarily,
not always.
but that's why you want agents who are going to find out what your client's goals
Genius.
are. For sure. So moving on, we had the lending terms hierarchy, which we've already touched on. Appraisal waivers and inspections versus
now, hold on. Appraisal waivers, be careful, because some lending products cannot mandate an appraisal waiver. So, for instance, if someone has a VA or FHA loan and they say, we're still going to give you this appraisal waiver, well, the contracts of the amendatory clause of those two loan products say the buyer cannot be forced to make good on an appraisal waiver. So that's an important consideration.
Conventional only, Fannie, Freddie, your lender can plug the property in and run it through an automated underwriting system, which will tell them whether or not there is an appraisal waiver. So you could find that out early.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about inspection or being willing to purchase as is, I never recommend skipping an inspection, but I have seen offers get accepted that have beat out offers that we've put in because they were willing to skip out on an inspection. It's not my recommendation, but it is an option for you if you're really, really adamant about the place that you found. Moving on from that, we also have something called an escalation clause, which if you are interested in that, I highly recommend asking your realtor what that could be.
Yeah, be careful with those because you're basically tipping your hand on how much you're willing to pay.
Correct. Basically, you're saying, I offer this much unless there's a higher offer, and if there is, I will beat it by X amount of money. I agree. I think it kind of just shows what you're willing to pay. And
Great.
So moving on from that, talking about the home warranty, closing cost credits, being willing to forego certain things, accept certain things, accept the risk of certain things are really going to help get your offer
Yep.
accepted.
The more you ask for it, the less competitive your offer is. And we're not saying those are bad offers.
Not at all.
We're saying it's less competitive. And competitive landscape, these are important considerations. One more time, I want to make sure, because Sly's not going to be joining us next week. Sly, give me a plug. How can people reach you if they want to?
Absolutely. Cell phone's the easiest way, 847-722-1775. My email is sly@ccm.com. And my website is ccmsly.com. So any one of those ways.
Great. And Christin?
If anyone wanted to get a hold of me, the best way to do it would be my cell phone, call or text 847-977-6751, or email me at kaufmankristin@gmail.com.
Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, you two, for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks to our